Hello and welcome to NTD News Today. Kevin Hogan here. Let's take a look at our top stories. Looming deadlines for lawmakers to prevent a government shutdown and a default on the nation's debt. We hear from leaders on both sides of the aisle. No timeline yet for travel restrictions on countries in southern Africa over the Omicron variant. The strain has been found in 20 countries, but what about the U.S.? 3 students tragically died and scores more are injured after a high school shooting in Michigan on Tuesday. Authorities say the suspect is refusing to cooperate with police. Flooding poured into a northwest border town in Washington state for the second time in 2 weeks. Evacuations are now underway with more rain soon to arrive. And Brazilians now ranked 6th among the nationalities detained at the southern border this past fiscal year. We look at a small Brazilian town that's suffering from an exodus of its residents to the U.S. The clock is ticking for lawmakers working to avert a government shutdown this week and trying to make sure the Treasury doesn't run out of cash in a couple weeks. NTD's Jessica Beatty reports.
Senator Mitch McConnell said Tuesday Republicans are working with Democrats to avoid a partial federal shutdown and keep the government funded past Friday night.
We won't shut down. I think we'll get there, and certainly nobody should be concerned about a government shutdown.
Lawmakers also facing a deadline on the debt limit, commonly called the debt ceiling. The Treasury Department projects it may run out of cash in 2 weeks. If lawmakers don't raise or suspend the borrowing limit, the United States could risk defaulting on its debt obligations for the first time. Former President Trump suggesting Republicans use it as leverage to derail President Biden's spending agenda. Trump wrote Tuesday that McConnell must be prepared to use the debt ceiling to kill the Democrats' new social spending bill, which will change our country forever. McConnell, instead, hoping a Senate Democrat will vote against Biden's spending agenda.
Not a single Republican in the Senate is going to vote for this reckless tax and spending spree. We all know it only would take one Democrat to tank it.
All eyes on centrist Democrat Joe Manchin. When asked about Biden's spending bill, he once again raised concerns about inflation.
Inflation is now more than transitory. We found out it's not transitory, and on top of that, you have this new strain of COVID they're very much concerned about. No one knows what effect it's going to have, and you have inflation on top. So all these things give you cause to pause.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer hoping to bring Manchin on board soon.
We've had a good meeting with Senator Manchin today. We mainly talked about climate issues, and we're going to get this bill done with 50 Democrats before Christmas. That's our goal.
President Biden also hoping it gets done soon.
The sooner the better.
When the Senate passes it, the House would still need to pass the altered bill. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
A top CEO warns New York could lose its status as a business hub over high taxes. He says incentives matter and that the status of any urban center is not guaranteed. Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon made the comments at the Financial Times Global Banking Summit. He says New York has to keep making itself attractive so that businesses will stay. A lot of people left New York City when it became a hotspot for the CCP virus last year. The lockdowns that followed were hard on the city's finances and prompted businesses to leave. Mayor Bill de Blasio then tried to raise taxes further. Then Governor Andrew Cuomo fought with de Blasio over the tax hike plan, saying even more businesses would leave. President Biden said the U.S. will evaluate travel restrictions from southern Africa on a week-to-week basis. It comes as the CDC moves to tighten its testing rules for international travelers over the new Omicron variant.
Mr. President!
Biden made the remarks while he left Minnesota on Tuesday. He wouldn't say how long the travel restrictions on 8 countries in southern Africa will be in place.
Well, it kind of depends. It's going week to week here to determine what we need and what the state of affairs. We're going to learn a lot more in the next couple weeks about the lethality of this virus, about how much it spreads, about whether what we have can control it, etc. So it'll depend on those issues.
This comes as the CDC tightens its testing rules for people flying to the United States over concerns about the new strain. The health agency said in a statement it's trying to revise its current global testing order as they learn more about Omicron. The revised order would require international travelers to get tested 1 day before leaving for the U.S. Scientists are still trying to determine what threat the variant poses.
So the CDC is considering a number of measures. Right now, it hasn't fully decided on what it's implementing, but I do believe some of the measures it's considering will have a substantial impact on our ability to detect virus before it arrives here.
It comes as more countries secure their borders over uncertainty about how fast Omicron spreads and whether or not vaccines can protect against it. For example, Japan and Hong Kong said they're expanding travel restrictions. Japan reported its second case of Omicron on Wednesday. The new strain has been found in 20 countries, but not in the U.S.
Confirmed cases as of yesterday was 205 in 18 countries, and just this morning, that's gone up to 226 in 20 countries. And I think you're going to expect to see those numbers change rapidly. Importantly, it has not yet been detected in the United States.
Dr. Rochelle Walensky said the Delta variant is still the predominant strain circulating. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is defending the military's vaccine mandate. He warned yesterday that members of the National Guard who don't get vaccinated won't get paid. In a memo, Austin wrote that Pentagon funds cannot be used for payment of duties performed under Title 32 for members of the National Guard who do not comply with the vaccine requirement. Title 32 refers to National Guard operations under state orders. Operations under federal orders are called Title 10. Both are paid for by the federal government. Austin also wrote that unvaccinated members won't be allowed to participate in training, drills, or deployments. The memo comes a day after Austin rejected a request from Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt for an exemption to the vaccine mandate. Stitt had instructed his recently appointed commander of the Oklahoma National Guard not to enforce the mandate. A teenager suspected of fatally shooting 3 students and injuring scores more at a high school in Michigan on Tuesday fired up to 20 rounds. Authorities say he is refusing to cooperate with police after being taken into custody. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
Sheriff's office! Yeah, we're here.
A boy and 2 girls were killed in the shooting incident at Oxford High School in Michigan. 8 others, including a teacher, sustained gunshot wounds. Oakland County Undersheriff Mike McCabe on Tuesday evening said that 2 individuals were in surgery and 6 were in stable condition. He praised his deputies' actions.
You saw in some scenarios where the officers or deputies didn't go in. They staged or they waited outside. After some of those scenarios were observed, I made it very clear to our staff, if they get there first, their job is to go in and neutralize the threat. If I get there first, I'm going in. If we get there together, we're both going in.
McCabe said officers received a flood of 911 calls about an active shooter at the Michigan High School at around 12:55 p.m. Officers didn't wait to enter the school.
There will be no staging, and I'm proud to say that's exactly what happened today. They went in and searched out the threat. They went to the gunshots.
The suspected shooter is a 15-year-old male student. He is believed to have acted alone and didn't resist arrest. McCabe added that the 15-year-old is refusing to cooperate with police and demanded his right to a lawyer. Authorities have not disclosed the identity of the suspect, nor a motive, though they said they recovered a semi-automatic handgun and several magazines.
It was loaded at the time and still contained 7 rounds of ammunition. When they took it from him, he had a loaded firearm and he was coming down the hall. That, again, I believe, interrupted what potentially could have been 7 more victims.
Oakland County Prosecutor Karen McDonald said in a statement that the suspect will remain in custody pending appropriate charges. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And now to the deadly Rush shooting. Authorities say recycled live ammunition could have made its way into a stash of dummy bullets that actor Alec Baldwin ended up firing on set. A local supplier of ammunition and movie props told police the live bullets may have been from recycled components he got from a friend. Sheriff's deputies also spoke with the father of the woman in charge of weapons on the movie set. He told them he worked with the supplier on a movie earlier this year. He said the live ammunition used on that film was for training purposes and may have made its way onto the set of Rust. It is still unclear why live rounds ended up in a gun meant for blank bullets. Investigators say other live rounds were also found on the set. The cinematographer was killed and the movie's director wounded when Baldwin unknowingly fired off a live bullet during a rehearsal. No criminal charges have been filed. The Supreme Court is hearing oral arguments challenging Roe v. Wade. The case involves a Mississippi law that bans most abortions after 15 weeks. The justices are considering whether to uphold the ban, which could bring abortion bans to many more states. A college professor tells NTD what makes this lawsuit so significant.
Mississippi passed a law in 2018 banning most abortions after 15 weeks. A U.S. district judge immediately struck down the law, calling it unconstitutional. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals later upheld the ruling. Now Mississippi is appealing the case to the Supreme Court. Adam Carrington, a political science professor at Hillsdale College, says this is the biggest abortion case in a generation.
It's the first time since 1992 that the court has accepted a challenge to Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood v. Casey, the main opinions that define abortion rights in the United States. Since then, since 1992, basically all the cases have worked within that framework. This is the first time where it seems like the court seems open to scaling back significantly or even overturning those cases again in a generation.
Mississippi Attorney General Lynn Fitch asked the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade, writing that the conclusion that abortion is a constitutional right has no basis in text, structure, history, or tradition. Carrington explains what will happen if Roe v. Wade were to be overturned.
I actually would expect states, depending upon their leanings, to go both ways. A lot of states would pass laws that greatly restrict abortion and protect the unborn in a way that they couldn't before. And then I think you're going to see some states follow New York and California's lead and codify greater protections for abortions late in pregnancy as well. You're really going to see a sorting of red and blue states on this.
The Center for Reproductive Rights is representing the Jackson Women's Health Organization, which is the last abortion clinic in Mississippi, in this lawsuit. They argue that the law defies decades of Supreme Court precedent.
I think that there is a majority of the court that would not have decided Roe the way it was originally decided, and therefore 5 that would like to see it overturned. I think you need to look at judges like Kavanaugh and Roberts and maybe Barrett, but especially Kavanaugh and Roberts, and ask how dedicated are they to precedent. And are they willing to go with what they thought was originally the right decision over what has become the settled decision of the last 50 years?
The Supreme Court is also looking at a separate law in Texas that bans most abortions after a fetal heartbeat is detected. Carrington says if the Supreme Court were to uphold Roe v. Wade, it's unlikely that they'll take on another challenge to it in the near future.
This is hard to overestimate. This is truly a big, momentous decision, and a lot of the future of abortion debate, the pro-life movement, and everything that is attached to that is going to be hinging on what these justices do in this case.
Decisions on the 2 cases are not expected until well next year. Allison Lee, NTD News.
Certain dangers are more common during the holiday season. Among them, toys, batteries, lights, and decorations, which could be a hazard for young children. To address this, the Senate Subcommittee on Consumer Protection, Product Safety, and Data Security held a hearing Tuesday, and advocates pushed Congress to act.
Reese Hamsmith's mom described her as spunky, sassy, and full of life. But in October of 2020, the toddler swallowed a button battery. After countless surgeries, intubation, and sedation, she passed away at 18 months. And now her mother, Trista Hamsmith, is raising awareness.
Button batteries are a hidden hazard every day, but the risk exponentially rises during the holiday season.
Speaking at a Senate subcommittee hearing, Hamsmith also urging Congress to act.
There's a lot of work to do in educating the public. But in addition to education, enforcement is also important.
Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal and Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn even introducing a bill named after Reese that calls for stronger safety standards.
As a mom and a grandmother, I am especially attuned to all of this.
In addition to button batteries, the hearing addressing magnets, balloons, lights, and other hazards.
Given how common this problem is this holiday season, consumers should be on the lookout for counterfeits when shopping for any product.
But for Hamsmith, her daughter is a reminder that the hazards are always there. Which is why Reese is also her motivation to keep fighting so that Congress can help make it a little bit easier for parents.
Democrats right now have control of the White House and both chambers of Congress, but their majorities on Capitol Hill are thin, and Republicans are anxiously gearing up their campaigns to flip the House red. Only a few seats are needed to give the GOP a majority. NTD's Melina Weisskopf reports.
Republican House Conference Chairwoman Elise Stefanik endorsed a handful of Republican candidates for Congress, all women who are running for office in 2022, and they're all hopeful and confident that they'll flip the House back red come next year.
Why am I optimistic? Because Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi's agenda has failed America. We are seeing crisis after crisis.
With the illegal border crisis, they are finding small abandoned children on their ranch lands that the coyotes are leaving and just abandoning these people.
While inflation, immigration, mandates, and critical race theory are areas of crisis, according to Republicans, most Democrats on the Hill stand by Biden's leadership. And with seemingly polar opposite points of view, how can these parties come together? Here's some of these new candidates' ideas for reaching across the aisle.
Healthcare, especially, and Republicans get beat up a lot for not being supportive of healthcare. But I am a big believer. I want people to have healthcare, especially primary preventative care, so we can prevent healthcare costs in the future. So it really motivates me just to want to be a part of that solution to balance that power, because I think that's the best way to govern.
What's your message to the American people who are really looking at Washington, D.C. like, oh gosh, nothing gets done there. There's so much partisanship. What would you say to those people who are worried about this?
I would agree with them, and that's one of the reasons I'm running, because I'm tired of it. I always say, you want something done right, you do it yourself, and that's why I'm running for Congress, because I don't like it either. I agree with them.
And one area that has potential for bipartisanship in Congress is standing up to the Chinese Communist Party's human rights abuses.
It's horrifying to me, and it's scary that it's happening in front of us, and a lot of people aren't saying anything.
With Confucius Institutes, we have one at the University of New Hampshire in my district, and they are censoring and silencing our voices on social media and via big tech. So these are all issues, again, that my generation doesn't realize. That's why they're all on TikTok, which is Chinese spyware, right? These are issues we need to relay to young people, or we're going to lose our country if we don't.
Congresswoman Elise Stefanik tells us if Republicans take back the House next year, holding China accountable for mishandling the virus and its human rights abuses will be an area of focus.
Republicans, I think, need to lead the way, and we will lead the way in standing for human rights. I believe that countering China is the most important issue that my generation is going to face.
These candidates have a year to kick off their campaigns for the House. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker says he will not seek a third term in office. It will force the Republican Party to defend an open gubernatorial seat next year in a deep blue state. Governor Charlie Baker announced he will not run for re-election in 2022. In a letter to supporters, he said Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito will also not run for re-election. The 65-year-old Republican wrote a 2022 bid would be, quote, a distraction. Baker took office in 2015 and won a second term in 2018. 4 people have announced plans to run for the state's top office next year. 3 of them are Democrats. Evacuation efforts are unfolding after a second round of flooding soaked a northwest border town in Washington. On top of the damage, more rainfall is expected this week.
Another rainstorm hit the town of Sumas, Washington, just 2 weeks after major flooding. Downpours soaked streets again and delayed recovery efforts.
In February of 2020, there was a major flood here, but that was not, I think 25 homes had water in them. I think this 2 weeks ago it was 300 homes, and then yesterday we saw water like we did in 2020, which was what the town hadn't seen it that high before.
City officials issued evacuation notices over the weekend as the storm approached. A local church is now collecting donations for displaced residents. The church building has traditionally served as a food shelter, but this time the water made its way inside.
And now people are getting more weary. It's just discouraging. And so we do our best to just continue supporting each other. And we, in this room, we're committed for the long run.
The damage comes after parts of Washington saw an earlier round of severe flooding in November. Rainfall is still drenching some of the state and could bring minor flood conditions through Thursday. Forecasters reported 2 inches of rain in Whatcom County, south of the Canadian border, starting Tuesday, with up to 4 inches possible in the surrounding mountains.
California may keep its last nuclear power plant open. U.S. Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm says public support has grown for the energy source and that she is willing to talk with state officials reconsidering its closure. Nuclear power fits the Biden administration's goal of decarbonizing the U.S. electrical grid by 2035, but the license for the California reactor is set to expire in a few years. And while nuclear power now accounts for about a fifth of U.S. electricity, the reactor shutdown will expand the country's need for clean energy, which would make Biden's energy goals harder to reach. The California Public Utility Commission says certain upgrades would be required for the licenses to be extended. This year's Atlantic hurricane season was one of the costliest on record. Part of the reason is that this year is in the top 3 for the most U.S. storms. Damages from 4 hurricanes topped more than $1 billion each. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration says Hurricane Ida cost more than $60 billion. The good news is the latter part of hurricane season was quieter than forecasters had predicted. A small Brazilian town is seeing an exodus of its population as more and more residents head to the U.S. Hundreds of householders this year have taken their kids out of school, sold their belongings, and paid human smugglers to cross into the U.S. illegally. Here are the details.
The town of Alpargata in southeastern Brazil saw hundreds of households leaving for the U.S. just this year alone, and the town's population was only around 7,500 to start with. The town bakery is short of help. Civil servants have fled their posts. Even local soccer teams are running out of players.
Some young people have gone with their families after the reopening of the U.S. borders, which allows families to enter the U.S. with their children. We have noticed a huge drop in athletes in soccer school. The number dropped a lot because their parents took them to the United States.
Previous migration waves were dominated by poor young men who quickly returned home. But this year, many white-collar workers, including nurses, engineers, and even city officials with guaranteed jobs, are leaving. Many have no plans to return, and they'll be harder for the Brazilian town to replace.
With the high price of the Brazilian currency, the pandemic that reduced jobs, and people in this region having very close contact with relatives and friends who have already left, I believe these are powerful incentives to want to leave the city.
Officials say in Alpargata, nearly 5% of the workers at the mayor's office fled to the U.S. this year. The office was the largest employer in town. While the area's schools are also feeling the effects, they've lost 10% of their 926 students so far this year.
This year, 2021, a significant number of students left for the United States. We will see the consequences in 2022 because the resources the school receives from the federal government are proportional to the number of students. When students leave, the budget is also reduced.
With few major employers, the region has come to rely on the money that immigrants send home. The mayor says the region now lacks engineers and healthcare workers, and that educated young people especially are choosing to leave for the United States.
CNN suspended its top news anchor Chris Cuomo on Tuesday for defending his brother and former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo over sexual harassment allegations. The suspension came in response to new court documents released on Monday. A CNN statement reads, "These documents point to a greater level of involvement in his brother's efforts than we previously knew." It says they're suspending Chris indefinitely, pending further evaluation. Andrew Cuomo was forced to step down as governor after sexual misconduct allegations surfaced over the summer. He's denied any wrongdoing. Chris Cuomo, in May, admitted he breached some of the network's rules by advising his brother on how to handle the allegations in the public eye. Court documents released this week show messages between Cuomo and media sources seeking information on his brother's case and the women involved in it. He did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The trial of Ghislaine Maxwell continues. She's the former girlfriend and longtime associate of convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein's private pilot of almost 30 years took the stand, and one alleged victim gave her testimony. NTD's Jason Perry was in the courtroom.
Larry Vasosky took the stand today. He was Jeffrey Epstein's private pilot since 1991, and he was also a helicopter pilot, and he would frequently fly Epstein and others to Epstein Island in the Virgin Islands. Now, he said he kept a complete passenger manifest log of all the flights, and when he was asked about high-profile people who were on the flights, he mentioned names such as Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Prince Andrew, and he also mentioned actors such as Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker. He went on to say that he never saw any women who appeared to be under 20 years old on any of the flights without a parent or legal guardian. He also said that he had no knowledge of any sexual abuse. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell is also a helicopter pilot, and she would fly Epstein and others to Epstein Island. And the first alleged sexual abuse victim took the stand today. She used a pseudonym as Jane and wanted to remain anonymous. She said she first met Maxwell and Epstein when she was attending an art camp in Michigan. Now, she was surprised to find out that Maxwell and Epstein resided in Palm Beach, Florida, where she was also residing at the time. She went on to say that Epstein would praise her and said she had potential, and he offered to pay for her education, and he would often give her money when she visited his mansion. She went on to say that Epstein began sexually abusing her at the age of 14, and Maxwell was often in the same room during the abuse. And she started crying on the stand when she was telling this story. Now, there are 3 other alleged sexual victims that are expected to testify. Jason Perry, NTD News, New York.
The wife of Mexican drug lord El Chapo finds out her fate. Emma Coronel was sentenced to 3 years in prison with credit for the time she served following her arrest in February. Coronel pleaded guilty to several charges, including conspiracy to distribute heroin, cocaine, marijuana, and meth earmarked for import into the U.S. Prior to hearing her sentence, Coronel expressed remorse for her involvement with her husband's actions and accepted responsibility. El Chapo, whose real name is Joaquin Guzman, was convicted on 10 counts in 2019. He's being held in Colorado's Supermax prison. Authorities in Alabama have questioned a former FedEx driver after hundreds of packages were found dumped in a ravine. Last week, Blount County Sheriff's deputies found between 300 and 400 packages tossed into the ravine on private property about 40 miles outside of Birmingham. Investigators say the driver left the packages there at least 6 separate times. That means FedEx is a victim of 6 different property theft cases. Authorities say there are also about 450 individual victims. FedEx says the driver no longer works for them. The shipping company is attempting to deliver as many recovered packages as possible. The case is still under investigation. Just ahead, a giant red kettle in Times Square is catching the public eye. It's part of the Salvation Army's fundraising efforts to help those in need this season. Learn more in just a minute here on NTD News.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, the CEO of MyPillow. Cancel culture has not only affected myself and MyPillow, but millions of you out there. My employees and I want to personally thank each and every one of you for all of your support. At MyPillow, we not only have pillows, but we have hundreds of products, including my new slippers, bathrobes, sleepwear, and my new beds. We're offering the best gifts ever for the best prices ever. For example, we have this exclusive offer on the standard size MyPillows, regularly $69.98, now only $19.98 with your promo code. We also have the queen size My Pillows, regularly $79.98, now only $24.98 with your promo code. And we have the king size, regularly $89.98, now only $29.98 with your promo code. So go to mypillow.com now and use the promo code on your screen, or call the 1-800 number below to receive this exclusive offer.
The holiday season is upon us, and New Yorkers have already spotted the Salvation Army back in Times Square, this time with a supersized red donation kettle. This year, the effort is looking to bring help and hope amid the pandemic.
Bells ring out next to a huge red kettle in Times Square, kicking off the Salvation Army's holiday fundraiser.
We have the giant red kettle. This is the second anniversary of the kettle being out in the community around New York City.
Measuring over 7 feet, the aluminum kettle hangs from a 32-foot tall stand. Its size is meant to represent the spike in necessary aid during the pandemic.
Overnight almost, we saw our food requests double. We went from about 3.5 million people being fed the previous year to 7.4 in the midst of the pandemic last year. And so just a great increase in the need for food.
Passers-by marveled at the unique kettle.
It's about giving, helping out the people that need it. It's just a wonderful time.
It does such a greater good. And lets us know, and lets everyone know that we're here, okay? And we care.
Last Christmas, donations were down, partly due to the pandemic. The Salvation Army hopes the emerging Omicron variant won't put a damper on this year.
Thank you very much. Merry Christmas.
Now those interested in donating can even do so by text message if they can't make it to a red kettle in person.
Drivers in Massachusetts found themselves sharing the road with more than just cars and trucks Tuesday morning. That's when they noticed a horse galloping down Route 140 alongside them. Video captured the horse, reportedly named Max, tearing down the road. One witness says the animal seemed calm and drivers slowed down as he passed. A number of officers responded to the call, quickly arriving in Taunton off exit 19. State troopers, Boston Police, and Taunton Police were among them, plus officials from the Department of Transportation and an animal shelter. They were able to rein in the horse, reportedly named Max, with a police dog leash. Thankfully, his adventure had a happy ending. Max is now back home safe with his owners, who arrived with a trailer to transport him, though it's still unclear how Max got onto the highway in the first place. Miami was one of the top search destinations on several travel websites as the tourism industry started to rebound from the pandemic, but concerns about the new Omicron variant may once again disrupt travelers' plans. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
Until news of a new variant, Florida had remained fairly immune to a downturn in tourists. Republican Governor Ron DeSantis' pro-business and anti-lockdown policies throughout the year allowed one of the state's main industries to flourish, even as tourism dipped in other parts of the United States.
Ultimately, it's about our people and our places, and that's what truly gives Miami that tropical yet cosmopolitan feel. And it's, whether it's South Beach or South Dade, whether it's downtown Miami, Wynwood, we've really grown up as a city.
Miami and Florida typically have an even mix of domestic and international tourism. While much of the country was shut down, several new hotels opened in Miami, and airlines including Southwest and JetBlue added Miami routes for the first time.
We are blessed geographically with being this gateway to the world, whether it's folks coming up from South America and throughout Latin America to Europe. Our airport is now become the busiest airport for international passengers. Ironically, during the pandemic, we added a lot of new routes, so the accessibility is critical.
Statewide, Florida had 32.5 million travelers from July to September of this year, exceeding the number of visitors in 2019. But as cases of Omicron are confirmed around the world, there is fear of yet another extension of the pandemic. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Now over to Europe. There is growing pressure on the British Prime Minister to stage a diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympics, meaning the UK wouldn't send officials to the Games. Earlier in the Commons, MPs called out the Chinese Communist Party's human rights atrocities. It comes as more countries consider a boycott of the Games, which begin in 10 weeks. NTD's Jane Worrell has this report.
A topic that crosses party lines. Pressure from both sides of the benches calling for a clear answer on the Beijing Olympics.
This is a country now, I say to my honourable friend, that has trashed an international treaty with the United Kingdom over Hong Kong, is arresting everybody who disagrees with it and persecuting them. What more does it take for my government to make a clear decision that they will not attend the Winter Olympics and they will not allow officials to? The other day, the Leader of the House indicated there were no tickets to be bought. Not good enough. Can we now have a clear answer? We will not attend and nor will our officials.
And with relation to human rights issues in both Xinjiang and also in Hong Kong, we have taken a robust action in terms of human rights, and we have also imposed sanctions on those responsible. But with regards to the Beijing Olympics and Paralympics in 2022, as I say, no decisions have been made in terms of government attendance.
Both Sir Ian and Labour's Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs Stephen Kinnock bringing up evidence from a Uyghur tribunal hearing held over the weekend. It finds top Communist Party officials, including current leader Xi Jinping, involved in ordering the alleged Uyghur genocide. And they brought up concerns over Chinese tennis player Peng Shuai.
Does she think that it is appropriate to send members of our royal family to the Beijing Olympics to rub shoulders with the very people who are orchestrating these horrific crimes against their own people?
As I said in previous answers, we have taken robust action in response to our concerns. And, the honourable gentleman raises a number of different issues, including Peng Shuai, the tennis player. But, as I've said in previous answers, we have imposed sanctions. But in terms of attendance at the Winter Olympics, no decisions have been made.
The issue was raised by Scottish Liberal Democrat Christine Jardine.
Renewed urgency and urged the Prime Minister to think about a boycott.
More MPs are coming together with politicians from different countries to call out China's human rights atrocities. The US is also considering a diplomatic boycott of the Olympics, but it's taken a similar stance to the UK and hasn't yet made an official decision. Jane Worrell, NTD News, London.
At least 7 countries are secretly supporting Taiwan's military project, according to a report. And the French National Assembly is backing Taiwan with a new resolution it passed on Monday. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has more on the story.
Faced with increasing aggression from Beijing, friends of Taiwan are quietly stepping up to help. This, according to a Reuters report. Details say at least 7 nations are pitching in to aid Taiwan in building a submarine fleet. The US and UK reportedly provided key technology, while experts from Australia, Canada, India, Spain, and South Korea will lend a hand. Once complete, the fleet will become part of the island's deterrence effort against possible invasions. The island has tried to purchase modern submarines in the past, but couldn't find a seller, with other nations fearful of angering Beijing. Taiwan's defense ministry called the new submarines crucial for national defense, while China's foreign ministry accused the assisting countries of, quote, playing with fire. Beijing used the same rhetoric when Chinese Communist Party head Xi Jinping met with U.S. President Biden virtually earlier this month. There, Xi Jinping warned Biden not to support Taiwan. China operates nearly 60 submarines, and Taiwan's Navy deploys just 4. The French National Assembly is backing Taiwan with a new resolution it passed on Monday. The pro-Taiwan resolution calls for the island's inclusion in international organizations. Taiwan thanked France for the gesture. The island's foreign ministry praised the resolution as historic. It says Taiwan and France have a long-standing relationship based on democracy, freedom, and human rights. The resolution supports Taiwan's participation in agencies such as the International Civil Aviation Organization, Interpol, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, and the World Health Assembly. China claims Taiwan as its own territory. It rejects any attempts by the self-ruled island to participate in international organizations. French lawmakers promoted the resolution's passage on Twitter, but Beijing voiced strong opposition, claiming it conforms to U.S. pressure and that it won't have a real impact. The French Senate passed a similar resolution in May.
Still to come, an entertainment agency in the UK is offering Santa Claus lessons. There, students are getting trained on tricks and techniques to prepare for Christmas. Pets, critical pandemic companions, and now owners are planning to return the love and then some come Christmas. All that and more here on NTD News.
Last Friday, this guy stole a package right off my porch. Or at least that's what would have happened if I didn't have my Vivint Smart Security System. Instead, this is what really happened. System detects package. Thief walks up. System scares thief. Thief runs away. If your doorbell can't do this, you need a Vivint Smart Security System. Call 844-544-0866 today.
You worked hard for your money. You invest in stability for your retirement and your family's future, to build and leave them with something greater. The next unprecedented financial crisis, political misstep, or unstable government can depreciate it all away. It was called the gold standard for a reason, the financial preservation of tomorrow. Diversify your assets against inflation, market volatility, and the unknown with real money. Hedge your wealth with the purest form of money, physical gold and silver. Because any currency printed on paper can be manipulated. What's backing up your IRA? Do what you need to do right now to be prepared with the Reagan Gold Group. Visit now, rggusakit.com, or call us at 866-912-1384. Receive up to $2,500 in free silver coins and a free safe with your new precious metals IRA. Call now.
The ongoing supply chain crisis? Big tech and other woke companies giving billions to the liberal left? Where will you shop for Christmas? Go to Mammoth Nation. We created a safe place for patriots to spend their money for Christmas and beyond. Shop thousands of products from American and veteran-owned businesses. Shop to the right, give to the right. This is how we fight tyranny. Go to mammothnation.com right now and become a lifetime member today. Use promo code EPIC and save 30%.
An old aircraft bomb exploded today at a construction site in Munich, the third largest city in Germany. 4 people are injured, and one of them is in serious condition. The accident occurred during drilling at the site ahead of construction on a new tunnel. The fire department says an aircraft bomb left from World War II triggered the explosion. Police say there's no further danger, but have cordoned off the area. Explosives experts were summoned to the scene to examine the remains of the bomb, and all rail traffic was suspended at a train station nearby. Germany finds more than 2,000 tons of live bombs and munitions each year. These are from American and British warplanes left during World War II. Some of them lie buried as deep as 20 feet underground. Contestants in the Miss Universe beauty pageant were taken on a tour of Jerusalem's Old City walls. The contest will take place in Israel next month. Israel says it will host the Miss Universe pageant at a Red Sea resort on December 12th. This, despite virus-related travel restrictions. Israel announced Saturday it will ban foreigners from entering the country. Other restrictions include longer quarantines for citizens and residents returning from abroad. A controversial cell phone surveillance system designed to track infections will also be reinstated. The Israel tourism minister says Miss Universe participants will be able to bypass certain strict CCP virus control measures. Israeli media reported that one Miss Universe contestant was diagnosed with COVID-19. A senior health ministry official says Israel is putting together a safety plan for the pageant and could limit admission from countries deemed high risk. What used to be a CCP virus hotspot, Brazil, is slowly rebounding, hoping to celebrate Christmas and Carnival during the holiday season. But now, with the new Omicron variant, how are locals reacting? NTD's Phil Zoe has the story.
Brazil has registered over 600,000 CCP virus deaths, with over 22 million confirmed cases as of Monday. But around 80% of the population already got at least one dose of the vaccine.
We are taking a series of measures, and this is a blessed country. I hope that we can have a peaceful Christmas, New Year, and Carnival.
Beachgoers in Brazil's Rio de Janeiro are hoping the worst of the pandemic is behind them. But now there are new concerns with the Omicron variant.
Of course, if the situation gets worse, I think the government could take measures like closing the borders to some countries. But I think that's inevitable given what's happening at this moment of the pandemic.
The Brazilian government said last week it's shutting down its borders to travelers coming from 6 southern African countries. Phil Zhou, NTD News.
With less than a month to go before Christmas, trainee Santas are preparing for a busy festive season. Some of them in the UK recently gathered for a class to brush up on some helpful tricks and techniques. Let's take a look.
Just like everybody else, Santas are moving to a hybrid work solution, both from home in the North Pole and from their office, the Grotto. UK entertainment company the Ministry of Fun last year introduced a video call service that lets children greet Santa Claus. The service, called Santa Headquarters, is set to be popular this year too.
The demand has just absolutely kicked off, so we've had to recruit more and more Santas. I think we've got about 25, 30 new Santas onto the books this year who are doing multiple bookings, sometimes several bookings a day.
Gathered here at the Ministry of Fun, these trainee Santas are working through tricks and techniques ahead of Christmas. Tips include talking quietly during video calls, so the microphone doesn't pop and potentially scare young children. And among the most important skills, learning the Santa laugh. The intention this year is to return to in-person performances, as well as offering the video meet and greets.
We're designing grottos in such a way, the setup of grottos, so that the child and family and Santa are able to keep quite a distance apart without it looking like that's what we're doing. So just by strategically placed presents or tree, etc., you can make it very naturally have natural social distancing.
Over the past 2 years, Santas have seen their job evolve quite a lot. The video call service was a new experience for some, and it had its advantages. For many children, it was a more intimate experience than going to a grotto to visit Santa.
They could show you all the places that they would like to take you, like you to go for delivering presents. They could show you what they'd done at school. They would sometimes play you a song. They'd show you birthday presents. They'd show you what they got last year. All this sort of thing, you know. It was much more engaged with the children were concerned, because sometimes a grotto can be an overwhelming experience.
During the class, trainee Santas keep the environment fun and lighthearted. Some debate which side the bauble of their hats should fall on. Others try to make attendees laugh by pretending to be stuck in an invisible room.
Gifts for pets are major trends at this year's Spirit of Christmas fair in London. Dog and cat ownership surged in the UK during the pandemic. Now, people are looking to give back to their pets this Christmas. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the details.
Pets have been widely credited for helping people get through the pandemic, especially when lockdowns meant human interaction was restricted. Christmas can be a chance for us to say thank you to our dogs, cats, and other pets. At the Creature Clothes stand, luxurious cushions, festive clothing, and pet-friendly toys are all on display.
I spend more money on my dogs than I do on my kids right now, which is probably bad. But yeah, no, I think people are just more willing and wanting to give back and share the love back to their pets that have given so much to us through all the hardship through the last year and a half.
In the wake of the pandemic, people are more likely to splurge on their pets this Christmas than ever before. But owners won't just be buying gifts for their pets this Christmas. The Snowflake Christmas Emporium stand sells canine ornaments. Winard Wilkinson and his wife get them handcrafted from all over Europe.
They're all handmade, they're all hand-blown glass, they're all hand-painted. And when we started going to see the various makers, one would have their own pet dog and they'd have made models of their dogs. And then my wife had this idea that we could have lots of dogs, because she's dog mad anyway. And then we sort of built on that.
Snowflake Christmas Emporium also offers cats and other animal decorations, but their dogs remain the most popular. For those who want something a little more personal, artist Abigail Rayner will create a felt double of your pet.
I have a lot of people coming and saying, oh, my son and daughter have just got a lockdown puppy, or we've just got a lockdown doggy, and so I think definitely more people have got pets this year, but people love their pets, and it's always been popular, lockdown, pre-lockdown, now.
Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
A new crop of pet names is making the rounds this year, and a few unconventional ones have made the list. Rover.com released its annual report on 2021's most popular pet names, while the usual names like Max, Bella, Oliver, and Luna remained favorites for dog and cat owners. In line with current events, choosing pandemic-inspired names was also on the rise. According to Rover, the use of Fauci for man's best friend jumped 270% this year, while COVID as a pet name rose 35%. Pet owners also seemed inspired by working from home, with some names echoing new technology and content from streaming services. The website saw a significant increase in animals named Zoom, Siri, and Google, while Grogu from Disney Plus's The Mandalorian was the #1 trending dog name in the country. Thanks for watching. At NTD, we're honored to be your source for the news. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. In New York City, I'm Kevin Hogan.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.